there that you will want to be a part of. We've kind of revised them a little bit from last time, but I hope they're helpful. Then we're going to talk about a simplified way of doing this. People make so much more out of this than it actually has to be. You can simplify this. You may have already done it. And so this is a great way to go back and revisit some of those things before craziness occurs. And then you're set. You're taken care of. You can have confidence that you can go on vacation for a week and nothing's going to, your business is going to continue to run, even if you're the sole proprietor running it. You can have confidence that if your salesperson leaves, it's not going to shut everything down because they're pissed off at you and they go trying to sabotage all your clients. You already have something in place for that when that happens because you took the time to think it out. And the simplified approach is a good place to start with that. You'll be amazed at how simple it is. Then it's up to you to try it. So where do you start? That's the third thing we're going to address today is some of the crucial business processes you could start with. And some of them might surprise you, and the order of them might surprise you. They're not revolutionary. They're just, okay, I never thought about starting there. I've just been sitting here getting overwhelmed by the whole thing. So we're going to try to do our best to make sure that doesn't happen. And we're going to borrow a little wisdom from somebody I've been learning from the past little bit. And I hope you find it useful as well. So, all right, so let's talk about the tips and tricks involving business process mapping and just process, management in general. And when you're coming up with these and going through them, what kind of a difference that can make. So number one, these are glorified lists. Whatever else you make these out to be, they are glorified lists. They're glorified to-do lists. Okay. You probably have an app if you're one of those people that like we use Microsoft to do around here, but there are plenty. The best app out there is the one that you actually use in this particular case. So if you're list making on a notepad, if you're writing out your lists and you're making that a big thing, then that's all this is. That's all a process map is for any length is a glorified list. Okay. So don't skip steps because you know how to do them. The important thing about this point and the next one is that you are writing this for somebody else. You are not writing this for you. The easy way out, the voice inside your head says, oh, don't write that down. You already know how to do that. Well, guess what? It's not for you. Okay? It's not for you that you're doing any of this. It is for somebody else. Okay? So don't skip any steps whenever you're making these lists. Okay. Then prepare this for somebody who doesn't know you, even if they do, and likely they do, but still prepare it for somebody who has never met you before, ever, because you approach it differently. You do this from another set of values, So, and then kind of along the same lines is make sure this is an E-Myth thing. Make sure the minimum skill set required to do the job is what you write it for. So you write policies and procedures. You write how to do these different things. Every job needing the minimum skill set required to do that job. If you have to have some sort of certification to know how to run a piece of equipment to be checked out on it, fine. That's an extra step in certification, and that's okay. Or you have to be checked out on something before you can use it, or you have to understand how a certain thing works before you can, if you're lost in a general ledger and accounting, then you have to have some sort of base training first. I have base training and I'm still lost in a ledger and accounting, but you get the idea. So the minimum skill set required to do a particular job is what you write the procedure for, and frankly, create the job for. Okay. That's the way that you create that. And then finally, so don't write a book, guilty. And don't overcomplicate this. Okay. I'm going to refer back to point number one right here. These are just glorified lists. So, but albeit when you're done, it will be a collection of glorified lists, but they're glorified lists nonetheless. So don't write this ginormous manual that is so filled with fluff that you lose just the procedures. Most of the people just want the step by steps. Here's what I do now, then here's what I do in a minute, and here's what I do after that happens, then here's what I do after that happens, and that's it. And that's all you need, really. If you've written it for them, if you haven't skipped any steps that are left up to the mind to assume, because you know what happens when you assume, right? Those of you who don't, ask somebody. But nonetheless, you then have that, out there where it's so these are just a list. These are just simple things. All right. Speaking of simple, let's talk about how to do a a really simplified. It's not very glorified at all, in fact, business process map. Where do you start with this? Well, the first thing is to make a list. The first thing is to really decide which process you're gonna do first, which one you're gonna tackle. You need to break these down into bite-sized chunks. Don't do your entire sales fulfillment billing process all in one. It will just overwhelm you. So don't do that. So but places you can start are sales, operations, or administration. If you just want core groups, but then break it down to bite-sized chunks from that, because what is it? And I'm going to give you some suggestions as to how to parse that down even further, so this doesn't overwhelm you. Remember, this is simple. We're not trying to overwhelm you. We're not trying to make this harder than it's supposed to be. At the very worst, it'll be a bit time-consuming and maybe a little tedious, but at the end of the day, you'll be very happy that you have these things if you really commit to doing them. Second step is to make that list. These are just lists. So you pick the one you want. So write down every single step in the numbered order that they come. If you forget one and you go back and do it, this is when it's good to do this on, say, a computer. You just go add a line right where you need a line. If you missed a step, you're writing through this and you're trying to capture everything, and you're inevitably going to miss something that you forgot. Either somebody reminds you of, or you think of it later and oh crap, I need to go back and add that. So you go back and add that, and you make it a next line, and that's perfectly okay. You want to capture all of this in, like we said before, in as simple a terms as possible. So you're inevitably going to miss something that maybe seems obvious to you, but shouldn't be, So it's okay. Go back and add in those pieces. Then we go back and add the descriptions. Now, 1 to 3 sentences only, and the shorter the better that it takes to explain it. We don't want a book again. But a paragraph, a small paragraph, is okay if it's appropriate. So, but nothing wasted in terms of words here and fluff. This is really a procedure after all, and some of them need a little more some little steps need a little more definition than most, and that's okay. But they don't need, entire paragraphs and a page written about every single step. Otherwise, you'd never get through anything. So, yeah, just keep it short. That's as much advice to me as anybody else. Okay. Next, if you need to visualize this, if you're a visual person, that's totally cool. That's where, honestly, the business process map term kind of ends up, is in a flow chart or a process diagram that looks on a very base level like this little graphic over here. This is not an actual one, but this is kind of the idea. Okay. So you have something that you use flowchart symbols for. You can Google what those are. They're pretty self-explanatory once you get them, if you're not familiar with what flowchart symbols are. And you can use tools like Lucid Charts, Microsoft Visio, I think, is still hanging around, OpenOffice Draw. I mean, there's Zoho probably has one. There's a bunch of different tools that will create charts like this and flowcharts. Heck, even PowerPoint will create a pretty basic one, or process flow diagram that will do flowcharts. So you can start with any of those and use any of those, and probably another 3 or 4 tools that I hadn't thought of yet. But it's that it's relatively easy to do that, and they will label some of the shapes appropriate as to what they are. Like a diamond is a decision, an oval is a start and end point, a square is a process, or something that actually happens. And so different symbols mean different things. And so then you're routing with lines and arrows where where everything goes, where the decisions happen. So I mean, it's a great way to visualize this, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. It just takes extra time. But if you're a visual person and the list just is not doing it for you, then this is a great way to do that. And finally, on the simplified version here, actually a couple more points. Have an external person, somebody who's not you, not your team, that you're documenting, not familiar with that at all. Have them review and test this. Okay, show them what this is, either the list or the flow chart. Preferably the list, probably, and try to have them execute it. Test it by executing it and see if they can do it. See if it passes that test of the least skill set required to do something. And prompt them where needed. But I mean, otherwise, have them do it, and have them do it independent of you looking over their shoulder doing it. Not that you should completely disappear. It's not a secretive thing, but you want them to really test it for what it is instead of having your influence in the middle of it. So let them do that. Let them do what you're asking them to do and fill that out. And then finally, maybe the most important step of all is, once you come up with these processes and you've tested each one of them, actually implement them. Implement them as written. So you can see if they work. You can see if they need to make revisions. You can check to see if there is, something that perhaps you missed, that has been missed for a while, that may be costing you money, maybe costing your business money. That's the point of doing these, is to look for gaps. You will find, and don't be ashamed at all if this happens, that as you're going through each process that you're in each one of the steps involved in that process, you may find a place that there are gaps of, okay, what do we do now? Well, what have we always done? I don't know. There's nothing. I don't get it. Okay, but I guess we need to add something. And you're going to feel like an idiot for a minute. And it's not good that you feel like an idiot, but it's okay. It happens. That's the point of doing this. So once you do that, then you find a similar level set of steps to fill in, to solve that gap, to fill that gap and solve that problem. And then you move on, and you'll feel so much better about yourself having caught those things in the process. And that way, nobody else is confused. It won't be costing you any money. The little air leak, as it were, is in what you do is taken care of, and nothing is left to chance on it. Okay. So nothing wrong with that at all. You're going to find those issues. That is the point. So it's one of those, what is it? It's not a bug, it's a feature when you find those things. So that's okay. That's why you're doing this. Now, if you're confused on where to start, let me offer some courtesy of a gentleman named Justin Glover, who, as I said, I've been getting to know over the last few weeks. And has been providing training in the groups that I run with, and does a fantastic job. And I adapted a little bit because of who we are that are watching this and what you do. So props to Justin for this. But then it's some other places to start. So these are some processes that you could start with, and the order that they come up with, and we'll explain each one of these, and I think you'll see the logic of it. So if you're completely at a loss as to where to start, okay, you could be open to the idea of business process mapping. Now, you mentioned some vague areas, John. Where am I going to start with this? Okay, so start here. First one, client onboarding. Okay, didn't see that one coming, and it's not necessarily in the order that you think it's going to be in, right? You would normally think of client getting. How would I go out and get this? Okay, that's coming. Some of these are in order of complexity. So to get you started with a win early. So client onboarding is one of those. It's pretty straightforward. as to how, I mean, it's different for every company, but it's in general pretty straightforward as to how it works. So this can get you warmed up to the idea of business process mapping by doing this. Okay. The second one is, so I call this customer interaction, right? So in my world, this would be a coaching session. In your world, this could be a patient visit. This could be a client regular meeting, catch-up meeting, monthly meeting as a client interaction. This could be you've worked on a project and now this is the meeting along the way, the update meeting along the way. That's what this is. How does it go in your world? What are the different things that have to happen? And just a tip, the more consistent you can make this, the better. So then you can prepare. It helps you to prepare and to be ready. And it helps others to know what's expected and generally know what's going to happen. People don't like showing up to this with complete uncertainty. But if you set the tone in the first meeting of this is how it's going to go, then you work through that. Me, for example, I've sort of developed this along the way when I meet with clients for their regular coaching. Is I try to, for at least a regular ProfitWorks implementation, the Jumpstart is a little bit different. It's a little less, but I try to have at least five topics to discuss. And before we do the five topics could be anything from, I need help with this particular process, or what's your opinion of that, to, what is something big that happened, or what is coming up that we need to be aware of. But I also take an opportunity to talk about, as I've mentioned before in other, so we look at every week, we look at your revenue and your profits that you made, because they're different. Then we look at your leads for the week and your conversions for the week. So your leads, who you prospected to, your conversions are the ones that actually said yes. So we need to track all those things, but then we also have, and there's tasks that end up being assigned to everybody, to both sides, to my client and to me. So we all have something. That's how I approach coaching. That's how I counsel my group to approach coaching, because we need to be working just as hard as our client is in some respects. And we need to be bringing good quality things to think about and material to really help their business thrive and to grow based on their particular situation. So that's a challenge on us every week. And so there's things to do relative to that we need to be doing to sing for our supper, as it were. That's the phrase for those of you who are unfamiliar. So I then get to, I have to earn my keep every time we have that meeting, to make sure that I'm bringing value. That's singing for your supper, if you're not familiar. So, but write down the process, have a set process for how this goes for you. Okay. For each interaction, how it goes. Then we get to marketing and lead generation. And you notice we've kind of worked up in complexity. We started with the relatively simple, pretty straightforward. This can be relatively simple and pretty straightforward too. Honestly, the meeting section. Now you get to marketing and lead gen. And this is not as simple. Okay, but this is, you've kind of hit your stride now a little bit. You understand what you're doing, so you can then work on what this looks like. Pick one or two strategies that you're out there fishing with, and then what is the exact process by which something happens. Do you bring everybody to a webinar? Do you direct message prospect somebody? Do you run ads? Do you is this on referrals? How do referrals work in your world? And how do you process those smoothly? Is this customers who walk in your door, or people who walk in your door? If you say you have a restaurant and they're trying you for the first time, how does that interaction go? It sort of speaks a little bit to the point above, because that would be somebody coming to eat at your restaurant would be kind of the customer interaction. But how do you approach the marketing side of that? Okay. So then next we go to billing and payments. Now we're getting relatively easy. How do you accept billing and payments? But there's a system behind it that has to be in place, obviously, to process the transaction. So how does that go? And then finally, we have We have reviews and fulfillment. We have feedback and feedback and improvement. Big difference. Feedback and improvement. And something, if we're being totally honest with ourselves, do we do this well enough? I don't. Do you? I'm trying to get better, and I would advise you to do the same. Advice you didn't ask for. Have feedback in your situation. Be open to improvement. Be open to suggestions. Not all of them are going to make sense, but there's going to be some that do. And this is, as you marketers know, at the heart of reputation management. That's what we coach our people to do, is be responsive, accept feedback, process it. You don't have to take every suggestion to heart, but you do have to entertain them, no matter how silly sometimes, because sometimes you get some real wisdom out of that. And people want to know that you're paying attention. People want to be heard for if they took the time to do that in the first place. So these are the processes. These are the recommendations of processes that you're suggesting that you start with. Some are easier than others. Some are harder than others. And we're more involved than others, but they're all worth doing. Okay. So I'm going to leave this here for just a second, just so you can figure out where to start with this. So then you start with your list, you make your list, and from there you build it out, that list. Remember the business process before. So you make the list, you build out the 1 to 3 paragraphs that kind of explain what each point in that list is, if it needs an explanation at all. And then you have somebody test it, and then if all's good, you actually implement it and actually use it. And the middle step in between there is, if you want it visualized beyond just a list, you make a flow chart, which is no problem at all. Okay, so that's it. There's not much to it. But these are things that are very important. Now, you might ask, how do we implement this in our world? Well, you will see in a minute that policies and procedures are a big part of what we do. But everything starts with assessing need. And so for free, we do a 50-minute session where we find you at least $50,000 in profits, and actually much more. I found the other day $122,000 for somebody. With things that, some of which they were already doing, some of them they hadn't thought of. So that's the mix in all of this. And some of those we know we need to do, but we need to do them better and actually reach out and follow the advice that we give others, marketers, right? Sometimes that mechanic's car does not run as well as it purports to. So this is what we do. We start with a success blueprint, no matter where you end up with us. And like I said, it's free. It's 50 minutes of your time, and a lot of insight into your business, we hope. And then we get to choose oftentimes, and this is a part of sort of our transition. This is where we pull everything from 5 major impact areas we've talked about in other Boost Live sessions here, of foundations, more leads, more conversions. Let me get my mouse. More transactions and more profits. And you see all the different ones that are the different strategies that are listed around this wheel. And right over here, policies and procedures, right there as a foundation to what your business has. Because if you don't have that, it makes it incredibly difficult to scale. It really does. And so take the time early, or if you decide to really reset from where you are, that's cool. That's no problem. It happens a lot. That's part of what we do at JKO Works is that reset, or what they call in the refinery world, where I am, a turnaround, or for not only refineries, but other plants as well, where they take everything down, all the equipment, all the machinery, all the processes spin down, and they do maintenance on everything they need to do maintenance on. They review the processes, they review safety, they review everything before firing it back up. That's a turnaround. No problem with that at all. Every business needs a turnaround sometimes. And we may even do a follow-up live on that because that can be important, but it'll be a little bit down the road. We have some other things to cover. But this is a lot of where we draw our strategies from for your business, and we ask you questions about it, and we come up with some real our system, Profit Acceleration software, does some serious calculations on your numbers. 497 million calculations it can do. It's more than I'll ever see in my lifetime, but what it comes up with is truly amazing in terms of revenue potential. And then we jump into the Profit Works section. This is the full implementation of this, and I'm making a distinction for a reason, because I learned the value of, or saw the value firsthand of another option I'm going to give you in a minute. But for those who really do need the help, this is the road. We give you the roadmap to achieve all of these profits that we're talking about. And then we set about step by step, one at a time, week by week. If you want to go faster and it's proving okay, we'll go faster. We'll go as fast or slow as you want. But we have all this laid out for you, all these strategies, and we're working on one of them a week. We're taking an hour to work with each other as your accountability partner, your sounding board, your coach, your whatever you need us to be in general. But much of it is you are doing the work in your business. And as I said earlier, we're doing work right alongside you. We throw in some extras for that. We include access to our Success Academy, which is virtual MBA level training. So you can go get not only answers to questions, but it has some other strategies. If this is really working for you and you want a bigger picture, you want a client getting challenges at work, there's about 3 of them in there. 3 different steps to take, and they're filling you with knowledge the same time you're out there getting clients. So there's some really cool ways to do that. And so that they can work through everything in your business. We might even pull some of those out and do a client getting challenge of our own at some point. So stay tuned. We also give you access to our work CRM. It's powered by Go High Level. If you're high level, I guess it just is. If you need that. And there's lots of other bonuses down here, and we reserve the right to throw in even more bonuses. But this is what Profit Works looks like. It is a commitment of time and a commitment of effort for you to do this. But the results can triple, quadruple your profit, several times over your profits. And in addition to your revenue. But the revenue is just everything that's coming in. The profits are what you actually get to keep. So revenue feeds your ego. Profit feed your family at the end of the day. So, and sometimes those numbers, particularly in a service business, guys, are not as far apart as you might think. Okay. All right. But there is another option just in case that other one doesn't work for everybody. And I have 2 clients that are in the process of converting to this. So, or at least it's offered anyway. All right. So, this is called Profit Works Jumpstart. And the idea here is a scaled down. If you want somebody that's a sounding board, if you want somebody that we just periodically get together and you want a confidential source that won't laugh at you or think your ideas are crazy or anything like that, but yet brings quality to every meeting, every interaction that we have, a sort of a coach on call, then that's what Profit Works Jumpstart is all about. We do have based on your blueprint, we do a blueprint for this too. And we do have a set of strategies that we work through with you. But it's a much more scaled down format. And so you pay once a year cost, that's it. And you get unlimited 15-minute meetings with me or my team, unlimited 15-minute meetings. So we work on one thing at a time. We do a little bit of, wins and where everything's at, but then we just work on one smaller thing and then we answer your questions and then we move on. But I mean, but each time you're given some things to review and you're given 1 to 3 action steps that you're going to have to take to get on the calendar again, to get another meeting. This isn't for my sake. I'm not giving you homework just to give you homework. This is working on your business. If you're serious about all this, if you're serious about the directions that you're going, then this time in either program is worth it to you. It's just a matter of how much time you want to invest. So if you want less time overall to invest, this is your jam right here. So you can have unlimited 15-minute meetings. It's a year at a time. And we'll go down whatever roads you would like to go down. It's like I said, it's great as a sounding board. If you just want somebody to work through your ideas with you that are confidential, you don't want to mention this to your employees. You want somebody outside that circle. then that's why we're here. That's why this is here. This serves a very useful purpose. And for some of the marketers, this is great because then it lets them handle all the marketing stuff. If somebody wants to add on, say they already got some marketing things in place, but they want some of the business advice and strategy of what we're looking at, this is where that can come in very handy, and it's for a very reasonable price. And just trust me, it is. And not that the regular coaching, ProfitWorks coaching is expensive. I mean, it is, but we more than make up for anything that we charge out of the profits that we find for you. We show you a graph oftentimes where it's this, these great big bars that represent your additional profits that you could be earning. And there's this little tiny square over your pad that represents our fee for a year. So that's where we're at with this. So if this is something that you think you might want to know more information about, then come over. It's free. It's nothing but your time. It will cost you. It will cost your agency or your business to make this happen. Any type of business, but it should be kind of a little bit of size to it. I mean, making $100 a month is probably. I mean, we can find you some revenue and things, but it may or may not be what you have in mind to a level that you're ready to scale for it. But otherwise, most businesses, this is if you're serious about working on them, this is a great way to do it. And either one of those will more than meet you halfway as to what you want to do. So that's it. That's all I got for process mapping. I hope you use it. I hope you implement it. Comment in where you're watching this if you have done process mapping and if it's worked for you or if it hasn't worked for you or if you got lost in it or whatever. Also, if you have any questions, comment where you're watching this and we'll do our best to come around and answer them. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And we will talk to you again next time.